Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, Summit Project 4. We're working on the light kit today. Now, if you saw the other video of mine, I've got a series going on of this thing. I've already gone and drilled my holes. Now, two of my holes turned out really good for the centers. The other two, the one's pointing that way, the other one's pointing that way, and they're just a little bit below center. Now that happened when I drilled them out. There's actually little nubs that stick up, and of course I used the right size drill bit and went in nice and careful, but for some reason, call it the mold, I have no idea, but that's the way they turned out in the end, and I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm making this thing myself. It's not costing me squat to do it, really. Yeah, you can buy the actual light bar kit from Traxxas, and it's anywhere between $10 to $20 depending where you buy it from. So I did a little bit more searching on it. But anyways, I've already got all this stuff, and I figured, well, just make it myself. So anyways, you're going to need a small drill bit. This one here is 3/32. You're also going to need, if you're going to use these standard size bulbs for LEDs, these are 5mm, so you will need a 5mm drill bit. Okay, and they'll fit nice and snug right in there once they're drilled, and then of course you're going to have to hot glue them after. Now I'm leaving them in here just like this, and I'm going to connect all my positive lines together first. Now on LED lights, your longest lead is always your positive light, or your positive leg. So you want to make sure that all your positives are tied together. Okay. Then you're going to tie all your negatives together. Okay. Now the other thing you're going to need is, of course, some very light gauged wire that's not going to chew up a lot of juice. So I've chosen to use these AC/DC power adapter wires from Dead Power Supplies. I keep the wire. You know, the rest of it may be junk, but I keep the wire from the Dead Power Packs. Or I'll buy the power packs at like Value Village, or we have a place called Rebuilt Resources. And I'll buy them for the wire, especially if it's nice and straight still. I'll buy those for like $1 a piece or something, and it's a great way to get a lot of wire for dirt cheap. The other thing you're going to need is going to be JST connectors. I've got 2 packages out on the table, because you're going to need to make a Y adapter. So you're going to need 1 male, 2 females to make your Y adapter with. And then of course your main plug-in. And away you go. So I'm going to do this video in little bits and stages, all one video. But I want to show you the stuff you're going to need first. So the next thing I'm going to go do off camera is I'm going to prep my wires, and then we'll come back and we'll solder them, and then stop, and then we'll just bounce back and forth until we're done. Now I made my wires each just because I'm not sure of my routing yet, but each one of my wires is about 29 inches long. So, and one wire here and one wire here, that's going to connect your 4 positives. The other 2 wires are going to connect your 4 negatives. So you're going to have to also make sure you get the wires marked as you're doing them. Like this is kind of an easy thing. You're doing all your positives first. So when you tie these together, you put some red heat shrink tube up here to mark as being positive, red heat shrink down here to mark as positive, and then your blacks, I would put the heat shrink on there anyways, keeps them nice and tidy, and then you can do your routing from there afterwards, because this is all black wire, but I mean one wire's got a big stripe, one's got nothing, and I got an oddball in here, so you know, I figured what the hell, that's a better way to do it. Now, the other thing you're going to need is heat shrink tubing. The heat shrink tubing that you're going to require is going to be 1/16 and 3/32. These will be your 2 heat shrink tubing sizes that you're going to need. Now I went with red and black because it's just less hassle. So I went out and I bought a whole whack load of this stuff today. Because I was running out anyhow, so I figured I might as well go buy it. And the stuff is dirt cheap when you buy it in bulk from a business that specializes in this stuff. So anyways, so we'll shut the camera off here. I'll get this stuff all prepped up and then we'll come back. Okay guys, I should have also mentioned you're also going to need a soldering iron, soldering flux paste for tinning your wires with, of course solder. You will need a hot glue gun after if you're going to hot glue your lights in place, which more than likely I'm going to. So anyways, next stage is putting the wires to guide them. We got 2 pieces of 3/16 heat shrink tube. So we're going to take our 2 negatives, and it's going to be marked, of course, with our black heat shrink. Now the idea is to make the wiring as neat as possible, but also you have to put a hole through the body underneath the light rack, and you want to be able to feed these so that they go down really nicely without a big mess. So basically make it as pro as you can. It also helps separate the wires, because your next thing is going to be figuring out exactly what your wire lengths are going to be, your Y adapters you got to build, etc. So we're going to put these so that it sits kind of like this, and then we're just going to take our little torch here and we're going to heat that together. You want to go quick on that with the flame because you don't want to melt your heat shrink tubing. Okay, so next set of wires are positives. Again, you want to bunch these together as close as you can so that in the end they turn out as neat as possible. Okay, so now those two are bunched together. So we'll be back with the next stage shortly. Alright guys, Y adapter is built, so all you got to do is take your 2 females, tie your positives all together, including into your male. So all positives on one side, all negatives on one side. And then heat shrink tube that together after you've soldered it together. And we're on to the next stage. Okay guys, so we've got our wiring fed through the shell. I've got my bar clamped back on, just got to make sure my screw holes are lined up. And I put a twist tie up in here, which will stop the wire from being able to be yanked down further. And then under the shell, I twist tied it the other way. So this way it can't be yanked the opposite way too easily. And of course, like I said about, marking your positives and your wires, your negatives together. So this way you know which ones are which. Now what I've done right now is I've got a little testing battery. It's about 3.7 volts. And I got it hooked up to a JST connector. So we're going to make sure that everything is going to be perfect. So we'll plug that in, and we've got lights. So we're good to go. That's pretty awesome. That's going to be really friggin' bright at night. Okay, so now we know that's all done right. The next very important step is, and I can't stress this enough with the videos, is when you're doing wiring inside of RC vehicles, don't count on red being positive and black being negative. It's very rare. A lot of companies flip those wirings on you, so you don't know if you're putting in something and it's going to be backwards. So you need to be able to test that. So I like to have a multimeter, so this way I can check forward and reverse voltage, so I know which way is which. So on this little 3 volt battery, okay, we already know positive is positive and negative is negative, because that's kind of a no-brainer type of thing. But you need to be able to test that. So we go positive here. Also give you an idea how much voltage is left in your battery too right now. So forward voltage means proper connection is 4.06 volts, we'll say. Now if you were to put that in the other direction, it would read negative 4.06. So what you need to do with your Traxxas Summit or whatever vehicle you're doing this with, but in this case we're talking about the Summit, is you're going to need to take a connector lead, a JST connector, which the one that you're likely going to use, I'm actually disconnecting. I'll show you, just hang on. Okay, so what I'm doing on my Summit is I'm running off with a front light kit. So I've zippy tied the connector anyways right in here so that it's not going to get pulled out. And I put my Y adapter on here. So the power wire going in, I already know feeds my lights, but this broken up strip of white might be a negative or it might be a positive. Now I don't have my ESC in yet, so I'm going to have to test this another way with a separate ESC just to put power to my machine, or I'll actually wait until I get my ESC in and then test it. But what you're going to need to do is unplug the power going to the front lights. You're going to need a female JST connector. Plug it in to the power lead that's normally for your LED lights up front. Because we don't know how they wired these. We know that positive is always the long lead on an LED, that's true. There's no getting around that. But because they don't use red and black as wiring, which, by the way, will not make a difference if they do use red and black, because like I said, they reverse them. Okay, because technically battery power voltage on a battery comes out of the negative and into the positive, so it's kind of stupid. But that's just the way it works. So you take a JST connector like this, and you hook it up, and then you're going to put your multimeter on these wires with the power turned on your vehicle, and you're going to make sure that positive is actually positive, negative is actually negative. Okay, and if you need to flip them, then you need to mark them. So that's where I usually heat shrink tubing, and I'll put this with some red tubing and this one with some black tubing if that ends up being the case. We don't know that yet, so I'll test that after. I'll hook up a separate speed controller that I can power my receiver with and get power going to the system, and then we'll find out what that is, so we'll be back in a minute to do that. Okay guys, well, I've got a speed controller hooked up, and just to the receiver, just to power things up. And so we're going to turn this on. I'm going to do a voltage check on the lights and see if our polarities are positive, positive, negative, negative. So positive, negative, and it looks like Traxxas was nice. Positive is positive and negative is negative. So that's it. Actually, what I should do, reset my diffs on this thing. There we go. Okay. I'll unplug this. Sorry about getting in front of the camera there. Okay. So now we know we're safe to proceed with positive being positive, negative being negative, and everything is going to power up the way we want it to. So, we shall be back in a moment. Okay, so next little modification is I want to be able to hold that wiring harness up. I don't want to glue it because that's just nothing but a pain in the neck. And besides, just take a couple rolls and stuff, the glue's going to pop. So what I want to do is I want to route these wires as close as I can to here, because there's a lot of space in this area so the wires can't hit anything. And I'm going to tie them off right in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole on either side of the skeleton cage. Probably one right here, another one close to it. I'll measure them out. And zippy tie the wiring harness from the inside, and that'll get me up to there. Then my next zip tie is going to have to be a larger gauge zip tie, which I'm going to probably tie either into here, or I may even actually, you know, that's not a bad idea. No, we'll stick with the center. I was going to bring it off to the side here, but then, you know, that's probably a weak spot. So we'll do a zip tie on either side here, one for each set of wires, and then we'll zip tie them together and put them right here, and that'll be our final zip tie off spot. And we'll be able to hold that in place, and then we can cut our wires to the lengths we need and hook up our little JST connector here, which is going to be able to plug in and plug out without any hassle into the vehicle. So this is going to save, you know, taking the hood off and having that wire in the way that's, you know, really long, which, you know, could get tangled up in anything inside, right? The idea is to make this as pro as possible and compact and neat, so that's what we're going to do. And I really liking how my front end here turned out already for my setup, even in the back with the wiring. It's all nice and pretty well protected down in there, so we're all good. So we'll be back shortly as soon as we drill some holes and put some zippy ties in. Like I said, I just don't want this to be like an hour-long video for you guys, so we'll be right back. Okay guys, so I got my holes all drilled. Wires are down where they need to be, all fished through and zippied. And I got one here, and of course this one here in the middle holds all this stuff in here. All in here. So, next thing we're going to do is make sure everything's cool, which I know it is. And we're going to put some power to these lights for you guys. Voila! We now have roof lights. These things are going to be so sweet. Oh. Yep, sweeter if they stay running. Yes, I know. Alright. There we go. So these are going to be nice and bright, you think? These are ultra bright LEDs. They're about the brightest. They're the brightest 5mm that you can get. So they're pretty bright. Now this just unplugs from here, and voila, my harness. So let's go over to the summit. Be right back. Okay guys, so over to the summit. I've got my power wire hanging out here. So all I gotta do is move this in the front. This hooked into the back end. Come on, there we go. And just lift the front up a little bit, and we can plug our harness right in. And all of our wiring is going to stay completely out of the way. So I'll just take the camera off and see if I can give you some light in there so you can see. So all hooks up inside. All the wiring's hidden away. It's all tucked in nice and neat, so it's not going to interfere. The wires actually go over top of the body posts, so it actually holds that top section in a little bit better too, and over to right in. Should have taken a wheel off to do this, but you guys get the idea where everything's sitting here. Right there, that's what I wanted. So, and everything's good. And it's all shrink wrap tubed as well, so it's going to help keep all the water and stuff out. So now when I want to take off my canopy, to change my batteries, we'll say when I'm out playing, I just lift the body off gently to the side a little bit. And I can unplug it, take the body out of the way, and there's my plug. Voila! So nice clean wiring job here. There's our back end. So nothing's going to snag any wires or anything. It's all protected nice. No wires can drop down in here at all. So that's going to keep everything good as well. So, other than putting my speed controller in as soon as it shows up, I'm hoping for tomorrow or by Friday at the latest. According to the shipping, they say could be here tomorrow, could be here Friday. As soon as that's in, hook her up, plug the lights in, fire her up, we're going to take this thing for a cruise. So now, when it comes to night driving, even though the lights on this thing are really bright for headlights, you know, plus it's got the two bumper lights off the sides here, and it's got the rear red lights so you know where your rear end is facing, which is great. Now with these 4 ultra brights up top, that's going to give me even more headlight power. So when we do a night run with this thing, it's going to be really interesting. And I'm hoping for some actually, not that I care about getting this thing soaked or anything, but I'd really rather the first couple runs I keep it dry as possible, just because I want to beat it up in the springtime, right? Anyways, we're going to take it out on some dry road at night. I'm sure the weather will cooperate in the next little bit. But otherwise, in the meantime, we will fire everything up for you in here. You know, shut the lights off. You can see how bright this is, especially with these 4 really super bright lights. So anyways, that pretty much ends project part. I believe we're on 4 now. I believe this is part 4 if I remember right. Let me just, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're on part 4. Could be wrong, but anyway, you get the idea. So our next portion, we'll show you how to hook up and install the ESC, because that's something a lot of people are kind of curious about a little bit. You know, how do I get the old one out? Well, I never got that opportunity, but I do know how to put the new one in, and everything's already prepped. So I can show you how to actually install it, so taking it out is reversal, right? So anyways, see you soon on the next video.